town. Well, Sasha, good afternoon, and good evening, good morning to everyone around the world. We're here with the Bhagavad Gita talk, and I'm struggling with the 9th chapter of the Gita here, partly because it's one of my favorite chapters, and partly because suddenly now we're in a war, and I feel a bit disturbed, spiritually and in my practice. It's very difficult to reconcile. But when I first came to the Hare Krishna movement, we had the war in Vietnam. And the first time I really had to talk to devotees was I was in New Orleans in Louisiana. And the Vietnam War was going on. It was like 1970, I believe, 71. And I had read the Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. And I put this question to the devotees. I said, how is it possible? Okay, you worship this God who tells us to go to war. So how do I reconcile that? And the devotee, I don't remember his name, he explained it to me, and he said, well, there's different answers to this question. On one level, the Battle of Kurukshetra is a special circumstance. Duryodhan, we know, is the incarnation of Kali. This is recorded in the Garga Samhita, which is a book that Govinda Maharaj recommended to everyone. Govinda Maharaj, I call him Govinda Maharaj because he was my friend. But Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj, Guru Dev, as he's well known, he liked the Garga Samhita because that book gives the background of a lot of the personalities in the Mahabharata war. And one example that stands out in my mind that I remember is Duryodhan as the incarnation of Kali. And there's a lot of back and forth about Duryodhan. And, is he good? Is he bad? Kind of thing. Are his actions justified? I had a long discussion with some Indian friends of mine, and they have different points of view. Because on one level, Duryodhan follows the rules externally. He seems to be following Dharma. But under the table, he does all these terrible things. He sends the Pandavas on vacation to a very nice vacation place. And in that place, he has his agents construct a house made of very flammable wood with pots of paraffin and the modern day equivalent of gasoline all over the house, and instructions to light the house on fire and kill the Pandavas. And he provokes a fire. The Pandavas ultimately escape. But there's all these different events in the lives of the Pandavas where Duryodhan is trying to assassinate them. Also, Duryodhan is very envious of Bhima. There's Subhashini, Hare Krishna Subhashini. Thank you for joining us. Praneshwari Devi Dasi is here, Tapanandini Devi Dasi, Narita. So I was saying, my first exposure to the Bhagavad Gita, I was 15 or 16 years old, and I went to the Mardi Gras in New Orleans. And there I met the Hare Krishna devotees and spent a few days at their ashram. And I put this question. I've read the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita talks about war, and it tells Arjuna to go fight. So how is this possible? if this is a book about peace, how is that possible that Krishna seems to advocate war? And the devotees explain this wasn't a very exceptional kind of circumstance. So you have the forces of good lined up on one side and the forces of Kali lined up on the other side. So we're talking about Duryodhana as the incarnation of Kali. And on the other side, you have the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and Arjuna and his family. So this is a very special circumstance. That's the first point that the devotees made to me. Modern day circumstances do not approach the Battle of Kurukshetra. Sometimes people think, well, what's going on today, it's a reflection of the Battle of Kurukshetra. But in a sense, if Duryodhana is the incarnation of Kali, and he's mentioned in the Garga Samhita, the modern actors, the modern war makers, they don't rise to that sort of level. They're insignificant by comparison. That was one point. Another point is, in a metaphoric sense, I've said this before, right? In a metaphoric sense, the Bhagavad Gita goes much deeper than some sort of adventure story about warriors and their battles and the kinds of weapons they used thousands of years ago. Flying airships and brahmastras. It's all very fascinating. But in a deeper sense, the Battle of Kurukshetra, it represents the struggle that we have within ourselves against the forces of Kali, against the influence of Maya, illusion. From birth to death, we struggle with a lot of very important existential questions, and that's our Battle of Kurukshetra. So here in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Idam tu te guyatamam pravakshyami anasuyave jnanam vijnana sahitam yajgatva mokshashe shubhat. He says, I'm going to explain to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, this hidden treasure about the knowledge of pure devotion, of bhakti. So this kind of knowledge, it's deeper than anything else you've heard. We're not discussing ordinary problems of birth and death. We're not discussing ordinary problems of war and peace, but we're going beyond that to a very high confidential knowledge. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that in the other chapters of the Gita, what is called Gyan has to do with the Atma or the soul. But here, what is called Gyan has to do with the science of devotion or bhakti. So that what's being revealed in the Bhagavad Gita is much deeper than a simple contemplation of the forces of war arrayed on a battlefield. And this is a very profound and difficult idea to grasp, because normally we think that war is the ultimate, it's the ultimate danger, where all the demons are unleashed and let loose. You can't control what happens in a war. So that's a very difficult part of the human condition. But wars come and go. Srila Sridhar Maharaj himself pointed out when he was asked about the nuclear war. He said it's a point on a line. It's a line on a plane. How can he say that? That's a very insensitive thing to say, isn't it? But Srila Sridhar Maharaj himself outlived what he used to call the Great War, which was the war in Europe in 1918, 16 to 1920, all these different upheavals, the Russian Revolution, the wars in Russia after the revolution, the Second World War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War. Srila Sridhar Maharaj saw all this come and go. And he remembered when he used to have a small preaching center in the apartments above the pharmacy owned by Abhay Charan Dey, or His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, there at Sitakanta Banerjee Lane in Calcutta. Srila Prabhupada, at that time a pharmacist, ran a pharmacy on the ground floor, but upstairs, Srila Sridhar Maharaj had a little preaching mission, a little ashram, where he would teach Bhagavad Gita. And I remember Srila Sridhar Maharaj told me that during the partition of India, which for India was in many ways worse than the Second World War, the British decided to create two different states, Pakistan for the Muslims and India for the Hindus, and arbitrarily put down a line and said all the Muslims on this side and all the Hindus on that side. And Calcutta has always had a very rich cultural mix of Hindus and Muslims, even dating back to the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In those days, there was the Chand Kazi, there was Hussein Shah as the king of Bengal, but they had a tolerant attitude towards Krishna consciousness and the Sankirtan movement for different reasons. It's very curious if you study the history. At that time, the Delhi Sultanate was run by a certain group of Muslims, and the Mughals were about to really stage their big invasion of India, and where the Mughals controlled India for many years. And so in Bengal, the king there wanted some autonomy. He didn't like it that he would be controlled by Delhi. And in order to increase the autonomy of Bengal, the king supported Bengali literature. In this way, Bengal would have its own identity, its own language, its own literature. And out of that encouragement of Bengali literature, we find the Chaitanya Bhagavata of Vrindavan Das Thakur and the Chaitanya Charitamrita of Kaviraj Goswami being among the first great poetic works published in Bengal and native language. So my point is, in Calcutta in those days, even up to the 1940s, there was a rich cultural mix between Bengalis and Hindus. Many Bengalis, Muslims, married into Hindu families. Many Hindu families found themselves with Muslim cousins and brothers even. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu marched with a torchlight parade of Sankirtan, chanting Hare Krishna to the house of the Chand Kazi, and many of them so angry that were ready to burn the house of the Kazi. The Kazi came out and spoke with Mahaprabhu and said, well, please don't commit violence against me. After all, we're brothers, or I'm your uncle because I used to treat your father as my brother. And whenever he had a problem, he would come to me. So there were all these different, very deep cultural relationships between Muslims and Hindus, even though there are certain taboos that won't be crossed. But when the British said, okay, the Muslims on this side and the Hindus on that side, there were riots. All the Muslims tried to get on a train and go to East Bengal on the other side of the Ganges, which had become East Pakistan. And all the Hindus tried to get away from what is now Bangladesh. And there were massive riots and massacres and killing and slaughter. And sometimes a train would arrive into a station packed with dead bodies. It's notorious. A very sad page in the history of India. So during that time, when Srila Prabhupada had his pharmacy, Sitakanta Banerjee Lane, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj upstairs teaching Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Govinda Maharaj said, what will we do if the Hindus come here? I'm sorry, what will we do if the Muslims come here to destroy your pharmacy? How shall we protect ourselves? And Srila Prabhupada said, well, we can fill hypodermic needles, syringes with hydrochloric acid, and we'll use that to defend ourselves. Of course, they never had to do that. That was unnecessary. But that was contemplated by Srila Prabhupada at that time as a self-defense method. Whereas Srila Sridhar Maharaj at one point was asked about defending the temple in Navadvip, and he said, we can defend with kirtan. So there's different approaches even among devotees on how to deal with war and crisis and problems like that. But in the end, the message of the Bhagavad Gita goes beyond the mere mortal conflicts in this world. My point was that when Srila Sridhar Maharaj says, well, it's a point on a line, it's a line on a plane, that may appear to be a very insensitive thing to say, but it's coming from someone who saw the Great War, the First World War, the Second World War, the partition of India, the Hindu-Muslim riots, the Vietnam War. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, at the age of 91 or 92, he was no stranger to armed conflict. And these sorts of conflicts are always there. I had an interesting history teacher when I was in high school. He was from the South, and I really didn't like him. He was very sort of a rude person, but when he would explain war, he would hold up his purse, and he'd say, now, why do you think there was a war between the North and the South? Money. You know, why do you think there was a war between the Germans and the Russians? Money. So, of course, money is a very mundane thing to talk about, but money is sort of a liquid form of karma. So all these different wars and conflicts, they're not about anything spiritual. And knowledge about war, this is not the knowledge that Krishna is talking about when he says Raja Vidya Raja Guyam, right? He says Raja Vidya Raja Guyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyakshavagam Dharmyam Shashukam Kartam Avyayam. He says this is the king of education. This is the king of knowledge. So I see that many devotees get caught up in trying to understand about why something is happening. And they say, well, these people over here are the forces of Kali, and those people over there are friends. But the whole science of friends and enemies belongs to a shastra in India that's called the Niti Shastra, especially Chanakya Pandit. And in the West belongs to the theories of Machiavelli and the Prince, where he's describing the best way to control people as a despot, as a king, as a prince. But this is not knowledge. This may be political knowledge, but it belongs to the world of karma. So what Krishna is describing here in the Bhagavad Gita is surrender. His idea is bhakti. This is the highest knowledge, dedication, surrender. Give yourself to that. But it's very difficult to make advancement on the path of surrender. It's not an easy path. Krishna is known as Hari, one who takes away. And so sometimes we find that everything is being taken away. I'm a good devotee, I'm praying to God, I practice my sadhana, but everything is being taken away. I don't understand this. How is this good for me? Why, God? Why me? And then we find that it's easy to avoid surrender and become Vedic. So everybody wants to be Vedic. So we have sort of Vedic religion, but then Vedic politics and Vedic astrology, Vedic conspiracy theories, Vedic Nazism. But this is not the message of the Bhagavad Gita. There's a current in fascism, there's a current in Nazism that flows from certain so-called thinkers who believe themselves to be deep in the Vedas. And this is not what the Bhagavad Gita is about. There was a man named Julius de Ebola, a German who studied the Vedas. And he thought, well, the original Aryan race, and I think this is a ridiculous and stupid conception, but I'm repeating it here to hold this up to ridicule, and so that people understand how silly some of these ideas are. There was a man in India named Gangadhar Bal Tilak, and he subscribed to this theory a little bit, but really it's promoted more by the British. And the idea is that the original Aryan race came from the north of India, perhaps the Scythians or the ancient Russian civilization, or even further north. And they're the ones who created the civilizations at Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, the original Indian civilizations. But in the end, their civilizations crumbled, perhaps after the Battle of Kurukshetra, when everyone was devastated, and gradually they disappeared from India, that became ruled by a dark race. So the mission of the real fascists, like Hitler and others, was to reestablish the white race that had originally been the Aryan civilization of India. Now, this has been refuted again and again, and it's a ridiculous, terrible, racist idea. But nonetheless, there's a current in fascist thinking that wants to reestablish Varnashram Dharma on the basis of Hitler's ideas and this guy, Julius Evola, his ideas. And that's very toxic. But most people don't know about these theories. They're in the background, very quietly driving a lot of the conspiracy theories that you hear today. Now, I live in Mexico, and I love Mexico. It's a beautiful country. I met Tapanandini here. It's a great country. It's warm. It's a beautiful day outside. But one of the interesting characteristics of the Mexican folk is they love conspiracy theories. So anything that happens, automatically we think the worst, and we think everybody's involved. And we can construct a very Byzantine, weird puzzle, jigsaw puzzle of ideas that connect to the hated enemy, whoever that is. Could be the gringos, could be Russia, could be China or the United States. Usually here it's the United States. So the other day at a football stadium, there was a riot because one man came out on the grass and took off his shirt. And so one group began beating the other group senseless. And we don't know if people were killed or not. Apparently, people might have been killed. Over what? Over football. But then immediately there's conspiracy theories. Who's behind it? Really, this was done to discredit the president. This was done to discredit the governor of the state. This was done to discredit football in Mexico, so that Mexico won't win the Mundial. What's my point? My point is everything is a conspiracy theory now, and people dedicate time and energy to this. But behind conspiracy theory is cynicism and hate. And getting back to what I was saying, it's much easier to show how intelligent you are, how well-informed and knowledgeable you are by subscribing to some conspiracy theory. It's much easier to do that than it is to surrender to Krishna. So we waste our time with this sort of ignorance, which is not knowledge at all. And so Krishna continues. I just thought I would raise that because there's so much hate. Krishna says, Ashradadana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapyaman Nivartante Mrityu Samsaravartmani. But he says, those who have no faith, the faithless, Ashradadana, they don't achieve Dharma, they don't make any progress in Dharma. Parantapa, oh conqueror. So what happens? Aprapyamam nivartante mrityu samsaravartmani. They return to the world of birth and death. And so this is a point that people miss. We are so involved in ourselves, in the body, and trying to profit while we're in this world. Where is money? Where is money? Make money now. Buy more, eat, buy more, eat, visit this place, spend more money, subscribe to my, internet page, whatever. There's all these superficial things that keep us entertained day and night that we forget our true self. And that's the message of the Bhagavad Gita. The message of the Bhagavad Gita is get in contact with your true self. This whole thing about I'm a Pandava and you're a Kuru, right? There's this rivalry between the Kurus and the Pandavas. That's there, but on a deeper level, know thyself, understand the Atma, and on a higher level, dedicate your Atma to the Supreme Lord. Because simply by serving Sri Krishna, one can achieve all perfection. And this is called real faith. The Srimad Bhagavatam says, Yataturo mula nishechanena tripyanti tat skanda bhujo pashaka pranopahara jatandriyanam tataiva sarva hanam achuteja. This is water the root of the tree. We're decorating the branches of the tree with little Christmas ornaments. That's not what it's about. Water the root of the tree. Because if you water the root, then the leaves and branches will thrive. The idea of the metaphor is take care of your soul, take care of your spiritual life. It's hard when the world is crumbling around you. It's hard when there's no money. It's hard when you face adversity. But know this, the soul is primordial. Take care of your soul. Do what you can for the soul. And what does that mean? It means surrender. Surrender is a very difficult road. Srila Sridhar Maharaj used to say, we would sit at his feet and he would say something, and we would all smile. Oh God, Hari Bol. That's such nectar. Hari Bol, Maharaj, Hari Bol. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj leaned down and told us, Hari Bol and horrible. The prospect of surrender is such. The prospect of surrender, it's horrible. Give up everything for Krishna? How could I do that? What about my wife, my family, my house, my children, my, me. But it says, Jatatur Mulit Nisheshanena Tripyanti Tat Skanda Bujo Bashaka. Water the root of the tree. Also, give food to the stomach, and by satisfying the stomach, all the senses of the body will be satisfied. So, in reading the Bhagavad Gita, we don't come to the conclusion, yeah, I need to fight for my country. I'm going to fight for what's right. I hate, and I'm going to fight. This is not the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada says, after reading Bhagavad Gita, one should promptly come to the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. One should give up all other engagements and adopt a service of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. If one is convinced of this philosophy of life, that is faith. Mayata tamidam sarvam jagadavyaktamurtina machstani sarvabhutani nachaham teshvarashkitaha. So then Krishna goes back to a more ontological argument and explains to Arjuna, this is who I am. I'm the personality of Godhead. Now, you won't find any other book. Believe me, I've read a lot of books. You won't find another book where God comes forward and says, this is me, I'm God. Listen to what I'm trying to say. Now, you might take this as some picturesque, mythological Indian granny wisdom of some kind. Fine, start there. Take it that this is Indian mythology about a wonderful little god, he, ho, ho, ho. Take it like that. That's fine. But then listen to what Krishna is saying, and you see, compare some other scriptures, compare the Quran, compare the Bible, compare Buddhism, and see if anyone else makes this kind of claim. He says, by me in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. And yet, everything that is created doesn't rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and though I am everywhere, I'm not part of this cosmic manifestation. For myself is the very source of creation. So, Krishna is everywhere, Krishna is in everything, and yet he has his own personality, which is apart from that. How do we understand this? Krishna says, well, think of it like this, as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests in the ether, all created beings rest in me. And he says, at the end of the millennium, all material universes enter into my nature. And then at the beginning of another one, by my potency, I create them again. So this is the meaning of the Gayatri mantra also. In the Gayatri mantra, we're told to meditate on the Gayatri mantra 3 times daily. And it says, Om Bhur Bhuva Sva Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dimyahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodya. Right? So, Bhur Bhuva Sva, what does that mean? Now, lots of people, they have a very materialistic analysis of this, and they say, well, below the earth, there's so many planets, and above the earth, there's so many planets. So there's Bur, this world, and above that is Bur, Bhuvar, Bhuvaloka. And above Bhuvaloka is Swargaloka. But this is a very materialistic understanding. Above and below are relative concepts. Above what? Below what? Where's the north? Where's the south? East and west? How do those figure in when we're talking about a planet spinning around in orbit, spinning around the sun, spinning around the center of the Milky Way galaxy? Which way is up and which way is down? So the Gayatri Mantra meditates on a higher reality. There's the world of experience, Bhu. Then there's the mental world, Bhuvar, which is far greater and vaster than our own material experience. And above that, there's intelligence and false ego. We use the word above. You could say beyond. And this is what you're meditating on. Okay, we're meditating on the universe, right? Bhur Bhuva Sva, Om Bhur Bhuva Sva, Tat Savitur. But what's beyond that? The word Savitur represents the sun. But the sun is also standing as a metaphor for illumination. Savitur, like in Spanish, it means sabiduria, wisdom, illumination. So what illuminates this universe is the soul, the jiva. But what illuminates the jiva, the Paramatma, God. So Krishna is saying here, go beyond these material manifestations. Yes, you're suffering in the world of material existence, in the world of karma, bhuloka, but go beyond that. Because at the end of time, everything is withdrawn anyways. So we're fascinated with buying some new shoes because I have to walk, I have to work in this world. What shoes will I wear? But shoes come and go. Your clothes come and go. Krishna says this body is like garments that you will take off and put on again and again. This whole cosmic order is under me. Prakritim Shvam Avashtabhya Vishrajami Puna Puna Bhukta Grama Imam Kritsnam Avasham Prakriter Vashat. Just this whole cosmic order. Okay, so Bhur, Bhuva, Sva, Tat Savitur, all that. It's under me. Under my will, it's automatically manifested again and again. And under my will, it is annihilated at the end. And yet, he says all this, don't think of what I do in a karmic way. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is not involved in karma. Nachamam tani karmani nibadnanti dhananjaya udashina vad ashinam asaktam teshu karmashu. Oh, Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I'm ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. He says, Maya Yakshena Prakriti. This material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. So don't break your brain trying to understand how God is moving this universe or how karma works. You can't. Put attention to surrender. Put attention to how do I serve the Supreme Personality of God? How do I water the root of the tree? And we're told that Shraddha will bring you into the company of those who are Shraddhavan, those who have faith. And so try to keep that company, see where it leads you. Listen to the Bhagavatam, listen to the Shastras, and guide your life in that way. Mahaprabhu gives us a very good hint at how to live. It's not my business here to tell you how to live. Everyone is more expert in living than I am. I can guarantee you that. But Mahaprabhu gives us a hint where he says, Trinava api sunichena, Tarora api sahishnuna, Amanira manadena, Kirtaniya sarahari. Try to be humble. It's very difficult to be humble. Try to be tolerant. These are very difficult rules. Why should I be tolerant? At what point do I stop absorbing abuse? You know, at what point do I stop being tolerant and I stand up for my rights? But Mahaprabhu does not say stand up for your rights. He says be humble, be tolerant. Why? Because only in that way will you be able to really Kirtaniya Sarahari, take the holy name of Krishna, because everything else is pushing against that. Maya is very powerful. Maya is very strong. And the whole concept of illusion, we want this illusion. That's why it's so strong. We've been seduced by Maya. We like Maya. We want more. So how do you get out of Maya? Learn some tolerance, learn some humility. Wars come and they're devastating and they destroy things, but try to make it through. And on the other side, Krishna says, Avajananti mamudha manushim tanamashritam param bhavam ajanato mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. So Krishna here refutes the idea that God is without qualities, that God is some force floating around in the universe. The Brahma Samhita tells us, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha, Anadir Adir Govinda, that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His body is Sachidananda Vigraha. It's eternal bliss and knowledge. Sarva Karna Karna, and he's the cause of all causes. So try to take shelter of that. Otherwise, Mogasha Karma, Mogasha, Moga Karma, no, Moga Jnana Vichetasaha, Rakshasim Asurim Chaiva, Prakritim Mohinam Shritaha. Those who would negate the existence of God for their own personal, selfish, karmic reasons are bewildered, Mogasha. They're in illusion. And they're attracted by demonic and atheistic views. And what happens? Their karma, their jnana, it's all mogasha. Their hopes for liberation, their fruit of activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. So then Krishna talks about the Mahatmas. Now, I kind of gave this reading last week, but I was a little bit upset. Then he comes to this, he says, he talks about the Mahatmas, and he says, Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantas cha dridhavrata namashyantas chamam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. I really like this part of the Bhagavad Gita because it's very transparent. In the earlier chapters of the Gita, it seems like Krishna's talking about karma, he's talking about yoga, he's talking about jnana. There's all these different ideas. But in the 9th chapter, he really comes to the point. And he says, Satatam kirtayanto mam. It's very easy to understand. Satatam means always. Kirtayanto. Mam, they're always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me. And so these great souls, these Mahatmas, worship me with devotion. So this is the real definition of a Mahatma. A Mahatma is not someone who wears saintly clothes and a turban and speaks with a nice accent and then asks people for money. This is not the work of the Mahatma. The work of the Mahatma is Kirtaniya Sarakari, and you'll know who is a Mahatma because he's involved in chanting the glories of Krishna. He says, Prabhupada comments, he says, in devotional service, there are certain activities which are called determined, such as fasting on certain days, like the 11th day of the moon, Ekadashi, and on the appearance day of the Lord. All these rules and regulations are offered by the great acharyas for those who are actually interested in getting admission into the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental world. The Mahatmas, great souls, strictly observe all these rules and regulations, and therefore they're sure to achieve the desired result. But even if it's not possible for you to observe all the rules and regulations, try to take the name of Krishna as it was given to you by your Gurudev. Then Krishna sort of goes off on a tangent and he says, even if you're not one of these great Mahatmas who's an acharya or a great devotee, even if you're worshiping some secondary form of God, you're still on the path. And so the vision given by Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the entirety of Bhagavad Gita, is a generous vision. It's inclusive. And he's always trying to encourage everyone from a very basic, primitive form of sacrifice in the earlier chapters to transcendental knowledge, yoga, and so on. So in our next verse, he says, Jnana jagena chapyane jajanto mamupasate ekatvena pritakvena bahuda vishvato mukam. He says, others who are involved in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge, they may worship the Supreme Lord as the one without a second, as diverse in many and in the universal form. So there's these other different kinds of theism or transcendental knowledge. Krishna says, of course, it is I who am the ritual, the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant. I'm the butter and the fire and the offering. I'm the father of this universe, the mother, the support and the grandsire, the object of knowledge, the purifier and the syllable Om. I'm also the rig, the sama, and the Yajurveda. I'm the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place, and the eternal seed. So it's interesting. I'm trying to grow some flowers from seed. It's very difficult. It's not as easy as it looks. But the interesting thing is, if you put the seed into the earth and add water, it will germinate. So how does life come out of a little tiny seed? Well, Krishna's behind that. Krishna says, I give heat and withhold and send forth the rain. I am immortality, and I'm also death personified. Both spirit and matter are in me. Then we have this curious verse, Trividyamam somapa putpapa chagyarishvai shargatim pratayante te punyamasajya surendra lokam ashnanti divyan divideva bhogam. He says, those who study the Vedas and drink the soma juice, seeking the heavenly planets, worship me indirectly. So again, he's giving succor to those who take an indirect path. Purified of sinful reactions, they take birth on the pious heavenly planet of Indra, where they enjoy godly delights. But Krishna's he's not really advocating this. He says, on the other hand, when they have thus enjoyed vast heavenly pleasure and the results of their pious activities are exhausted, they return to this mortal planet again. So it's not enough to drink soma juice and go to heaven. You're going to come back again and again and again. So the real problem then is not death. The problem is birth. The real problem is not that we're going to leave this body, but that we're going to return again and again, because your ego will carry you into your next life form, your next body. And you'll have to learn all the same lessons over and over and over until finally, as Prahlad Maharaj says, Puna Puna Charvita Charvanana, you get tired of chewing the chewed. If you chew sugar cane, after a while, it's not sweet anymore. You chew bubble gum. After a while, the bubble gum flavor is gone, but you just keep chewing. And that's what our life in this material world is like. You get some sense pleasure for a while. And you think, boy, this is great. I want more sense pleasure. But, as you get older, your nervous system is not as sensitive. You have to work harder to get the same sense pleasure. And after a while, there's nothing left, but you keep trying. So it's like chewing, according to Prahlad Maharaj and Bhagavatam. He says, this is like chewing the chewed. There's no flavor left, but you keep chewing again and again. So Krishna says, those who seek sense enjoyment by adhering to the different Vedic principles achieve only repeated birth and death. So what are the Vedic principles? Karma, Artha, Dhamma, Moksha. So where's the moksha? There's karma, kama, like the Kama Sutra. It's all about sex, desire, money, artha, karma, dharma, duty in this sense. So you do your work, you do your duty, you get your money. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it's dharma, right? Friday, you get your artha, your money. Saturday, it's kama, sex. And then on Monday, you're back to dharma, artha, kama. This is the cycle of repeated birth and death. So Krishna says, ananyas chintayanto mam. That's a good word. Ananyas means completely surrendered with no other purpose, like ananya bhakti. Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana paripashate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yoga kshemam vahamyaham. He says, those who worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form. This is a great verse. He says, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. So this is a great verse. This always helps me. Tesham nityabhiyuktanam yoga kshemam vahamyaham. Krishna will take care of you. You have to have this faith. This doesn't mean that we get down on our knees and we pray, oh, please protect this material body, protect my money, give me more money. No, it means that your eternal soul will be protected by Krishna, and he will carry what you lack and preserve what you have. And you should have faith. This is one of the 6 processes of surrender. Gopkritve Bharanam Tata. It means Mara Krishna Rakike, Raka Krishna Marike. Whoever Krishna wants to kill, no one can save him. And whoever Krishna wants to save, no one can kill him. And we don't know the purpose of the Lord. We don't know why someone dies and why someone lives. The people who are still here in this material world with us, running and playing and working and engaging their material senses, they're here for some time, but everyone has to leave this planet sooner or later. Why and when? We can't detect that. But Krishna will carry what you lack and he will preserve what you have. So have faith. This is the purport of the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is saying, Arjuna, have faith in me. Don't you worry. I'll take care of you. Prabhupada comments, he says, one who's unable to live for a moment without Krishna consciousness, but thinks of Krishna 24 hours a day, being engaged in devotional service by hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshiping, servicing the lotus feet of the Lord, rendering other services, cultivating friendship, and surrendering fully to the Lord. Such activities are all auspicious and full of spiritual potencies. Such a devotee undoubtedly approaches the Lord without difficulty. This is called yoga. And by the mercy of the Lord, such a devotee never comes back to this material condition of life. Kshema refers to the merciful protection of the Lord. The Lord helps the devotees to achieve Krishna consciousness by yoga. And when he becomes fully Krishna conscious, the Lord protects him from falling down to a miserable conditioned life. So he says there are other people who worship other gods, but in reality, they're only worshiping me. I'm aham hi sarva jagyana bhokta cha prabhureva cha natumam abhijananti tatvenatas chavanti te. I'm the only enjoyer and master of all sacrifice. Therefore, those who do not recognize my true transcendental nature fall down. And those who worship the demigods take birth among the gods. Who worship the ancestors and ghosts, they'll take birth among such beings. But those who worship me will live with me. And then he has this one big verse that everyone loves. Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati taraham bhakti paritam ashnami prayatat maha. So the God of the Bible ends the Old Testament with the words, obey me, or I will cut you down. I will smite the earth with a curse. The God of the Old Testament is a powerful God who devastates his enemies. And what does he want in sacrifice? Well, he told Abraham, he said, give me your son, give me Isaac, take a knife, cut out his heart, offer that to me. The sun god of the Aztecs, he wants the heart. I visited pyramids here in Teotihuacan and also in Merida, in Chichen Itza. They have a special stone god who's reclining, and he has, his hands are like this, and the ancient Aztecs would cut out the steaming hot heart of a human being and place it there for the sun. Because that's what the sun god wanted in order to renew the sun every 52 years. It's called the Fuego Nuevo, the new fire. But what does Krishna ask in sacrifice? Does he ask for a man? Does he ask for the son of Abraham? Does he ask for a smoking heart? Does he ask you to throw a virgin into a volcano? No. He says, if one offers me with love and devotion a leaf of flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. So Krishna is telling you the most humble thing that you can possibly think of. Offer me a drop of water in sacrifice. I'll accept that. If the only thing that you have to give me is a flower, come to Krishna with a flower. I'll accept that. What about if you have no flower? Offer me a leaf. You can find a fallen leaf anywhere. Offer that to me. So this is the kind of merciful, loving God that Krishna is. Prabhupada comments, the process of achieving such a marvelous result is very easy and can be attempted even by the poorest of the poor without any kind of qualification. So you don't have to be a Brahmin. You don't have to be born in a big family. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to go to a big school. What's your qualification? Offer Krishna a leaf. Offer Krishna a flower. There's the story, I don't know if I find it here. The story is given in the Mahabharata that Draupadi had a special pot. I believe it was Draupadi, has a special pot where she was blessed by the gods with this pot because they were in exile, and it would be difficult for them to find food. But Draupadi could invoke the god of this pot, and there would be enough food for everyone. And but there was a condition that after lunch had been served, after prasadam was served, and then that was it. The pot would not render any more food. And so Duryodhana, knowing this, he provoked Durvasa Muni, who had a reputation for cursing people, to visit the Pandavas in exile. And Durvasa Muni had 10,000 followers. So they went to where Draupadi and the Pandavas had finished their meal, and Krishna was there. And of course, Durvasa Muni expected a feast. He expected, all right, I'm a sadhu, these are my followers, they're hungry, you're a householder, you should feed them. So Krishna told Draupadi, Draupadi went to Krishna and said, what do I do? What do I do? Durvasa Muni is here with his 10,000 followers for lunch. I don't have anything. Oh my dear, what can I do? And Krishna said, well, tell them to, we will give them lunch after they take bath. It's not good to honor prasadam when one is dirty or in a contaminated state. They can go down to the banks of the sacred river and bathe. And when they're finished with their bath, we have sufficient food for everyone. And Draupadi said, really? And Krishna said, yes, have faith in me. So the 10,000 followers of Durvasa Muni went to the banks of the Ganges or the Saraswati, and they're bathing. Meantime, Krishna says, all right, now what's your plan? And Draupadi says, well, I don't know what to do. I have this magic pot, but there's a rule. If I use it, I can't feed anybody anymore. It's all gone. And Krishna said, really, it's all gone? Look in that pot, see if you can find anything. And so she looked in the pot, and in the bottom of the pot, stuck to the pot, was a little tiny leaf, maybe for spices. And Krishna said, well, offer that to me. And he took that leaf, and he was satisfied. Suddenly, back at the Ganges, the 10,000 followers of Durvasa Muni, they're coming out from their bath, and they're feeling really full. And Durvasa said, well, do any of you want to go for lunch with Draupadi? And the head of the followers turned to Durvasa and said, you know what? I'm really feeling full. I don't think I can eat anything. What about you? And Durvasa Muni said, that's strange. Me too. You know, I'm so full. I don't think I could eat anything. Well, you know, if we go to the Pandavas and they prepare a big feast for us, it will be a great insult to Arjuna, the warrior, and Yudhishthira, the king, if we don't eat anything. And Durvasa said, yeah, you're right. This is not a good situation. We better, let's just go. So Durvasa Muni took his 10,000 followers up the river to the next holy place, and Draupadi did not have to prepare any lunch. Why? Because she offered a leaf to Krishna. So yatata mula nisechanena, by offering something to the stomach, right? Watering the root of the tree, the whole tree is satisfied. So by offering something insignificant to Krishna, he's satisfied. He's not a jealous, terrible God who demands a hot smoking heart with blood dripping off it, or that you kill your son, or that you go into battle and sacrifice everybody. He's saying anything, just the littlest thing. Krishna wants only loving service. and nothing more. Krishna accepts even a little flour from his pure devotee. He does not want any kind of an offering from a non-devotee. It's not that you can go to Krishna and put money on the table and say, good, now kill my enemies. I love you, Krishna, now kill my enemies. This is not bhakti. Without the basic principle of bhakti, nothing can induce the Lord to agree to accept anything from anyone. Bhakti is never casual. The process is eternal. It's direct action in service to the absolute whole. So then Krishna gives you this. He says, all right, think about that. A leaf, a flower, a fruit, water. But then again, yat karoshi, yat ashnasi, yat juhoshi dadasi yat tapasyasi konteya, tat kurusha mad arpanam. He says, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that as an offering for me. So that's what bhakti is. And very clearly explained in this chapter by Krishna himself, saying, whatever you do that for me. Whatever you eat, offer that to me first. Of course, if you really love Krishna, you want to think about, well, what does he like to eat? So you can be a vegan because you hate violence, and that's nice. It's nice to avoid violence, but remember, Krishna likes butter. He's Makan Chor, he's the butter thief, you know. He likes yogurt. He likes milk. You know, in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, there's a verse by Shankaracharya, Gita Mahatmya, where Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogda Gopalanandana Parto Vatsa Shudir Pokta Dugdam Gitamritam Mahat. The Gita Upanishad, the essence of all the Upanishads, is like a cow. And Lord Krishna, who is famous as a cowherd boy, is milking the cow. Arjuna is just like a calf, and learned scholars and pure devotees are to drink this nectarine milk of Bhagavad Gita. So, Krishna likes milk. Krishna likes milk sweets. You know, he's Makan Chor, he's the butter thief. And so it's strange because this chapter of Bhagavad Gita is very short, really. There's only 3 or 4 more verses. I don't know. More verses in that. There's 7 more verses. But it's really packed with meaning, and it's very concentrated in its meaning as regards to bhakti. So it's hard to believe that anyone can read the Bhagavad Gita and come out with a different explanation, which is not bhakti. That's why Srila Prabhupada called this Bhagavad Gita as it is, because he insisted. Well, half the verses in the Gita, Krishna is saying mam, you know, satata kirtayanta mam. He's saying me, worship me. So how do you get this idea that the Bhagavad Gita is not about Bhagavan? It's hard to fathom. Anyways, that's my service to the Bhagavad Gita for this morning. I'd like to take some questions just to see if anybody's listening, because now I've done, I don't know how many hours of Gita talks. I think I've done 1.5 hours or so. Once a week. Yeah.
Mahayogi Prabhu, yes, actually I have a question this time. When I was reading this chapter, I was very interested and a little bit confused with the shloka. Actually, I don't remember the number, but you also was reading the shloka today, where Shri Krishna is saying that he is also our best friend. And so can I ask you to give some commentary, some comment on this on these
Yeah.
words, best friend, because for me, yes, if a person who is the best friend, we are not praying to the best friend. Yes, we are not worshiping best friend, but he is at the same time is saying that I am your best friend. Can you please somehow reveal the meaning of these words, please?
Okay, well, that would be verse 18, where he says, Katir Bharta Prabhu Sakshi. I'm the goal, the maintainer, the master, the Prabhu. So he says, I'm the Prabhu. I'm the witness, refuge, guardian, and true friend. Well, there's different points on that. God is your friend. Of course he's your friend. Every wave is favorable. Whatever happens to you is really a consequence of generosity. It's not that, I'm looking to see if there's any particular, comment. There's no real comment on that, other than that, if you think of Srila Sridhar Maharaj and his teachings, he says every wave is favorable. Now, how can that be? I'm unemployed, my children are hungry, there's a war on. How is that a favorable wave? But I was trying to explain, we're told to look at things from the long view of eternity, from the view of the soul. And as regards the soul, God is your friend. God is benevolent. God is good. God is not a bad man who's trying to punish you. What happens with the soul while it's in the material world, much of that is a consequence of our personal freedom. But freedom is given to us in a friendly way. What you do with your freedom, you decide, well, I want to go travel. Okay. But many things will happen to you on the road that you don't like. You will suffer. But the person who gives you the ticket doesn't want you to suffer. If you go to your mother and you say, well, I don't want to go to university, I want to travel. Okay. Daddy, here's a ticket. You can travel where you want. But in the course of your journey, you may find suffering. It's not that the person who gave you the freedom to travel wants to hurt you. They're your friend. So Krishna's your friend. On a higher level, we know that from Rupa Goswami, there's different rasic relationships that you can have with Krishna on a more personal level, and that he really does have personal friends. So in the end, our worship of God is not worship of an angry, vengeful God, but of a very sweet personality who, he says, I carry what you lack and I preserve what you have. In the end, he's your friend. So it should help you to think of God in a friendly way. If you can't do that, he also says, I'm the Prabhu in the same verse. He says, I'm the Lord. But the lordly feature of God, that's more like Narayana, Narayan, the four-handed Vishnu of Vaikuntha. So Krishna says, Gatir Bharta, I'm the maintainer. Prabhu, I'm the Prabhu. Sakshi, another one, I'm the witness. Don't think that you can do things and God won't see you. I'm there. I can see you. I'm the witness. Nivasa, I'm the refuge. You can take shelter of me. Right? Sharanam, the guardian. Surit, I'm your friend. I'm your buddy. I'll take care of you. You know, Prabhava, the universal manifestation. Pralaya, I'm also the annihilation. So it's very difficult to give a summary. It's strange. Bhagavad Gita is only 700 chapters, but it's very difficult to give a summary of one chapter because each verse is filled with very deep ideas. How is God the Lord? How is he my friend? How is he my shelter? So I leave I leave that to you to meditate on. You can think about it. How is God my friend? Why is he doing this? But the thing is, when we suffer, we think, why me, God? Why are you doing this? And God is telling you, it's okay, I'm your friend. It's going to work out. You'll see. Mahashucha.
Thank you, Prabhu. Jai Mahayogi Prabhu ki Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Well,
thank you very much for your talks about Bhagavad Gita. These talks are very, very deep. I hope that we will see you next week and we will continue with the 9th chapter, or we will start with a new one.
I hope so too. Yeah, I'll try to finish the 9th chapter next week. There's only 7 verses left.
Okay.
And then again in the 10th chapter, Krishna becomes even more intense in discussing bhakti. So thank you to all the bhaktas who have given me a little bit of reason to try to honor Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna.
Dandavad. Dandavad. Харе Кришна. Да, Махайги Прабhu сказал, что мы на следующей неделе встретимся и закончим последние 7 стихов 9 главы Бхагавад-гиты, а дальше мы начнем 10 главу, которая еще более насыщенная в плане своих смыслов. Пожалуйста, примите мои поклоны. До следующей недели. Dandavad, please accept our obeisances. I hope see you next week. Bye-bye. Dandavad.